TV, radio and online, Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dewbs and Co.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions are, those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Dewbs and Co. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
And look at this, everyone. They have let me out of the studio. Yes, I'm in a pub. Double yes. I am in Yorkshire. Triple yes. We are live from Doncaster. Good evening, everybody. What are we going to be speaking about tonight? Well, of course, there is just one topic in town today, the budget. I want to talk to you tonight, and I want to know, what have you made to it all? Does it affect you? Are you happy tonight? Are you sitting at home going, woo, that's what I wanted? Are you sitting at home going, what was in that for me? Are you sitting there going, just get these lot out and get Labour in? I want your thoughts on all of that. I've got Housewives' favourite, Ben Habib, one of Britain's best businessmen, keeping me company. I've got Joe Phillips. We've got a fantastic audience. We've got it all coming up for you over the next hour. But before we get into it all, let's bring ourselves up to speed, shall we, with tonight's latest headlines with Polly Middlehurst.
Michelle, thank you, and good evening to you. The top stories on GB News tonight. Well, Jeremy Hunt has vowed to encourage millions to rejoin the workforce and boost Britain's financial growth in his first budget as Chancellor. Mr Hunt said the Office for Budget Responsibility now forecasts the UK will no longer enter recession this year. Instead, inflation is predicted to fall from 10.7% at the end of last year to 2.9% by the end of 2023. Let's take you through the key points. In a speech lasting almost an hour today, the Chancellor announced these measures, including a change in duty paid on draft products in pubs, meaning beers and cider will be up to 11 pence lower than they are in supermarkets, something he said was only possible post-Brexit. You can also see there, if you're watching on television, the Treasury is going to freeze fuel duty for a further 12 months and abolish the lifetime allowance on tax-free pension savings, which originally stood at £1 million. Also announced today, the energy price guarantee will remain in place for a further 3 months, meaning the average household will pay £2,500 a year, and around 4 million customers on prepayment meters will pay the same as those on direct debits. And Jeremy Hunt announced an increase to the defence budget for the UK, worth £11 billion over the next 5 years. And perhaps the headline grabbing most people's attention, the shake-up of childcare from this government. Jeremy Hunt saying every child over the age of 9 months in eligible households will be offered 30 hours of free childcare per week, freeing the way for more women to return to work.
We have never seen before such a comprehensive attempt to say that in this country, if people want to work, we should take away the barriers. And that doesn't matter if you're an older person, someone who's disabled, someone who's looking for work, a parent worried about childcare costs. The government is on your side. If you want to work, we want to help you.
Jeremy Hunt. Well, Labour called the budget a sticking plaster and accused the government of a managed decline of the country.
His opening boast was that things aren't quite as bad now as they were in October last year after the kamikaze budget. And the more that he pretends everything is fine, the more he shows just how out of touch they are. After 13 years of his government, our economy needed major surgery. But like millions across our country, this budget leaves us stuck in the waiting room with only a sticking plaster to hand.
Well, in reaction, union leaders today criticised the Chancellor's budget for failing to tackle ongoing strikes across the country. Today, thousands of teachers, junior doctors, tube drivers in London and BBC journalists have all been taking industrial action over issues including pay, jobs, pensions and conditions. Unite's General Secretary said Jeremy Hunt didn't prioritise the NHS, instead delivering a historic betrayal. Meanwhile, the London Stock Exchange has suffered its worst losses since the start of the COVID pandemic, as fears of a banking crisis intensify. The FTSE 100 closed down more than 292 points as global banking stocks fell just days after the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank in the United States. Credit Suisse, one of the worst affected, seeing its share price drop by a quarter to a new record low. And that comes a day after the bank told investors it had failed to identify risks in financial reporting. The Swiss government is now being urged to intervene to protect the lender. In news away from the budget, 3 men have been arrested after a drive-by shooting outside a church in London in January. One of them, 19-year-old Alrico Nelson Martin, has been charged with possession of a shotgun with intent to endanger life and 6 other counts of intent. The 2 other men have been arrested on suspicion of conspiracy to murder. They remain in custody. 4 women and 2 little girls aged 11 and 7 were injured in the incident. A 48-year-old is still undergoing treatment in hospital. Those are your latest news headlines. We are back at 7 o'clock with more. Let's get back now to Michelle Dewbs in Doncaster. Just tuning in, I am Michelle Dewbs. This is Dewbs & Co. We are live in Doncaster. What a treat! I love it when they let me out, and I promise to be on my best behaviour tonight. I'm not sure about my panel there. I hope they will be too, because joining me, keeping me company in Doncaster live till 7 o'clock tonight, we've got 2 of my absolute favourites. Joe Phillips is the political commentator, and Ben Habib, the former Brexit Party MEP and the CEO of First Property Group. Welcome, everybody. And you know the drill, don't you, on Dewbs & Co. It's not just about us 3. It's not just about the beautiful people here in Doncaster. It's very much about you guys at home as well. What is on your mind tonight? I want you there to narrow your thoughts down, if you will, to the budget specifically, because that's what I want to get into right through till 7 o'clock tonight. I want your thoughts. Are you excited about what was in it? Are you happy? Are you sitting there thinking, what was all that about? Are you frustrated or what? Give me all of your thoughts. gbviews@gbnews.uk, as per usual, is the email, or you can tweet me
Jeremy at GB News. Now, I have to say, I want to start by asking the people here in Doncaster their impressions, their thoughts about what they saw and heard in the budget today. I was just pondering that during the news, and someone said, well, I've got to be honest, Michelle, I hadn't even seen the budget today because I was busy at work. So if you are in that category, let me just remind you, the energy price guarantee will be remaining at £2,500 for the next few months. That's good. If you've got younger kids, that's good as well, because apparently 30 hours of free childcare. Before it was only for age 3 and upwards. Well, now it'll be younger children as well. But there's a catch. It won't actually take place until after the next election. Your corp tax, remember there was lots of talk about whether or not corp tax was going to stay as it was or reduce or whatever. That is going up to 25%. There's loads of stuff on pensions. There's just loads of stuff, booze, fags, it's all in there. Anyway, so arms up. Who in Doncaster, not you two, I'll come back to you two in a second, who is happy by what was in the budget today? Hands up, do not be shy. It'll be a long programme. All right. Well, there's quite a few. Hang on, young man. I'm going to be spinning around in my chair tonight, so hopefully I won't get dizzy and fall off. Let's pick this chap here. We're going to get you a microphone. Hold your thoughts. Tell me your name and tell me why are you happy tonight?
Hi, my name's John Bradford, and one of the things that I most enjoyed today was the prospect of reducing inflation to under 3% by December, because I think inflation is what damages the man and woman in the street, business. It's the killer in your pocket. It reduces the power of your pound. So to me, that is what I really took from today's budget, and I hope that I will be proved right, or we will be proved right, or Jeremy Hunt will be proved right, that we can actually get our economy growing again and get inflation down, so we can all actually improve the power of the pound.
Because it was inflation was over 10% at the end of last year. Now they reckon it's going to be about 2.6, 2.7 by the end of this year. Do you believe that? But do you guys believe that you're going to have inflation of 2 point something by the end of the year? Gotta say, there's a resounding no in the audience. But anyway, you're happy about that?
I hope, and to me, that would be the real. If I could take one thing from this budget, it would be to bring inflation down, because industry, the man and woman in the street, we all benefit when the pound in the pocket is worth most. Yes, we get it. Inflation down. That's made him a happy man tonight. Anyone else who said that they were happy? There was a few of you. Where have you gone now? There's a chap there. Tell me your name and tell me why you're happy tonight. Get the microphone there. Him there. Keep your hands up. Come on, don't be shy. No, there.
Shy.
Cool, blimey. There. Right, come on, give us your name.
My name's Steve Marr.
It's going to be a long night, everyone, isn't it? Go on. Right.
My name's Steve Marr. I'm a local financial advisor.
Oh.
Very happy with the budget as regards pensions. Scrapping lifetime allowance. Increasing the annual allowance from 40 to 60,000. So professionally, very happy to see my clients. But from a personal perspective, what has it done for the ordinary working man? Well, I'm going to ask these guys the question.
Let me ask you this. These pensions, they've been criticised apparently of being a giveaway to the rich. Is that fair?
Well, I don't know about giveaway to the rich. I mean, it is fairly elitist.
Microphone so everyone can hear you.
It is fairly elitist, but in terms of lifting the annual allowance, it gives a lot more scope for people to plan for their retirement longer term.
Indeed.
So I'm quite happy about that.
I like that. Anyone else happy? I'm sure there was someone in this bit right in front of me. No, over there. There's a chap there. Suited and booted, on the back row, microphone. Tell me, this is my last one, so make it a great one. Why are you happy with what you've heard tonight?
My name's Scott from Leeds. Two things. I'm happy with the 11 billion defence boost over 5 years and the nuclear power infrastructure.
Are you? Right. Power and defence, making him happy. Briefly, in the audience, anyone unhappy by what they've heard tonight? Unhappy? Cool. If you're listening and you're not watching, so you can't see the show of hands, let me tell you, there's more hands that have gone up saying that they're not happy than what they were for people saying that they were happy. That could be down to shyness, because we're getting into it a bit now, but I suspect there's more people unhappy. That chap there, can I get a microphone to him? Third row, that section in front of me. Tell me your name. Why are you not happy?
Oh, yeah. Hi, Michelle. I think that they should have cut, at the very least, basic income tax. I think... and corporation tax. I think that taxes are too high, the highest tax burden on record, and I think taxes should have been cut. Inflation might be coming down to 2.9%, but that's an Office for Budget Responsibility projection. They're never right. And I think that, general working people should get a tax cut and helped out. I think that is very interesting. One of my panel, I think, will have strong views on that. One more from the audience before I bring my panel in. Thank you for that. Chap here that's not happy, hand up. Can I get a microphone to him?
Here we go. He's getting his step count up his Tony. Go on. Why are you not happy? What's your name?
Hi,
Sorry.
Nick Evans.
Nick, why are you not happy, Nick?
It's the sham that they're saying about the northern levelling up again. Never happens.
It never happens. The northern so-called levelling up funds. I've got to say, I do agree with you, actually. Does anyone else feel levelled up here in Doncaster? No? No, there's not a lot of... What did someone just shout out? There was a heckler there. What did someone just heckle out to me? It's a joke, he says, in a nice northern accent. A joke! Always sounds like we're saying jerk when we're saying joke. They're one of the same thing. Anyway, my panel, Ben Habib, your summary thoughts on the budget. And what we're going to do for the rest of the show, we're going to go into the quadrants, get me getting posh. We're going to get into the sections of the budgets as we go along. But overall thoughts as it stands.
Well, first of all, I'm delighted to be here with a live audience. Brilliant idea, Michelle. Thank you very much.
Oh, and you got good manners. And you got good manners. See? This is why I always, tongue-in-cheek, even though Ben Habib has always said he wouldn't employ me, this is why I always say, and if you missed that episode, you missed out.
This is the longest job interview in history.
I don't want to
She's
work
got a
anymore.
job. If you
Anyway,
want a job, you've got a job.
No, life's moved on. I don't want to. I'll work for GBNews instead. Anyway, that's one of the reasons I do jokingly call you Housewives' favourite. Your manners are impeccable. You were saying...
Well, I agree with all the comments made by the audience so far. And inflation coming down is obviously a very good thing. We have to bear in mind that we've actually had rampant inflation in this country for 13 years now. People may not recognise that because that figure's only come through in the official statistics in the last 12 months. But if you cast your mind back to post the financial crisis when money was being printed by the Bank of England to bail out the banks and to bail out those people who actually brought the economy to its knees, what that did was to push asset prices up, the price of property, the price of shares and so on, out of reach of the working and middle classes. So before the consumer price inflation that we've had more recently, we actually had rampant asset price inflation. And that was when capitalism was fundamentally broken as a result of quantitative easing. And then we had much more of that during COVID lockdown. And what we've now got is the third leg of inflation, which is consumer price inflation, that having robbed the working and middle classes of the ability to get on the housing ladder, they're now robbing the working and middle classes of the ability to put food on the table and heat their homes. And so inflation coming down is really critical. And I think it will come down, by the way. I think the
Do you believe
OBR,
to that level, the 2.7, the 2.6,
yeah, I think
whatever?
it can't sustain these higher levels because inflation by definition is measured against what it was 12 months ago, and we eventually catch up with ourselves. And the economy slowing down is going to have a gravitational pull down on inflation. So one of the easiest things that Rishi Sunak set himself when he gave himself those 5 targets for 2023 was bringing inflation down. What I really wanted to see in this budget was a general reduction in taxes. I think one
to
of the
that point there as well.
You know, we are at a post-World War II high in taxes. We're also at a post-World War II high in national debt. Never before in my lifetime has the country been as indebted, as taxed as it is at the moment. And the only way the working middle classes, private businesses, large businesses, the private sector generally is going to recover is if taxes come down. And actually the single worst thing in today's budget was the increase in corporation tax from 19% to 25%.
Yeah. And that is one of the things that I want to get into a little bit more in detail a bit later on in this programme. I'm fascinated as well. That got a big round of applause here, so I want to get people's views on that. So we'll come back to the court tax. Jo, your overall thoughts?
Well, I thought Jeremy Hunt was a bit like a doctor doing a ward round, you know, rather soothing, awfully nice, but you felt as though he hadn't read the notes of the patients. And I think, as the gentleman over there said, you know, over 3 million people are now going to be dragged into the basic rate of income tax. We know that wages have gone down 3.5% in real terms. Those were figures out yesterday. And, you know, Jeremy Hunt has found money for various things like freezing the fuel duty and bits and pieces like that. But there's been nothing for the nurses and all the people who are on strike today, that are many of them in the public sector. So I think...
But I thought the nurses, correct me if I'm wrong, because I've got to say that all these strikes are starting to blur into one now, but I thought the nurses had pressed paused on their strikes because they were now
yes,
moving
they have,
forward.
but there are other strikes as well today.
There are. I made myself late tonight by getting stuck in them.
I know. And I agree with what Ben said. I mean, the problem of taxation, it's not much point in giving with one hand and taking away with the other, because it does affect people, you know, in the middle. I mean, there are some sort of reasonable things in there, but I think a lot of it is very cosmetic.
Well, there was £63 million to keep leisure centres and pools afloat.
I'm very in favour of that.
Well, I used to come on school trips to Doncaster Dome, that many of you will be familiar with. So is that good news to the people of Doncaster? Your swimming pool will be kept warm? Is that the kind of thing that you sit there and you think, brilliant, that is a great use of £63 million? Or do you think, what are you doing? You've got your priorities wrong. What do you think? Don't be shy. We're talking about swimming pools.
But it's a good thing, Michelle, because in the end, that's the sort of thing that takes the pressure off local authorities. I mean, what we don't see yet is the detail, whether people and organisations and local authorities and businesses or sports providers are going to have to go cap in hand and bid against each other, which is what so often happens with this. But, you know, anything that helps keep people fit, active and healthy has got to be good, and in the long term, that's going to save money for the NHS.
Yeah, another thing that caught my eye as well, potholes. They're going to spend £200 million boosting the pothole fund. I'll leave it to you to decide whether or not that's a great use of money. £200 million invested in local regeneration projects, 12 new investment zones. Apparently they're going to make it 12 mini Canary Wharfs. Is that what we need?
Well, it's really interesting. You know, you mentioned those 12 investment zones, and I'm going to put the heating of swimming pools into context. Each one of those investment zones is going to get £80 million worth of funding. He's not going to deliver tax cuts to those zones. He's not going to attract businesses and people to move to those zones by giving them tax breaks. He's actually going to spend £80 million. And for each one of those zones, and there's one in Northern Ireland, which is a place that's close to my heart, they get £80 million. They're going to heat swimming pools at £63 million. So what kind of levelling up is £80 million times 12. That's 1 billion. That sounds like a lot of money. Actually, it's a drop in the ocean. If that's their tilt towards levelling up, it's fundamentally flawed. What he needed to do was something much more dramatic, which was to make it much more cost-effective and tax-efficient for businesses to operate in areas where hitherto they've been reluctant to move. And I'm going to take Northern Ireland because it's a very good example. The corporation tax rate in Northern Ireland is about to go to 25%. Northern Ireland operates on the island of Ireland as one economy with the Republic, which has a corporation tax rate of 12.5%. So if you're a business, where are you going to go? And we saw this in spades a few weeks ago. I don't know if the audience saw this in the papers, but AstraZeneca, you know, a backbone of British pharma industry, and we're proud of our research and development history in this country, has decided not to open its new facilities in the United Kingdom, but to go to the Republic of Ireland. And that should be a huge warning shot against the Chancellor's bows about what destruction his higher taxes are going to do to the country. So the £80 million spending that he's going to these 12 zones is a drop in the ocean.
Yeah, and I have to say, in case you've just tuned in, as well, when we reference the corporation tax, the fact that, of course, it isn't going to be reduced. In fact, as we all know, it's going to be increased to 25%. That got a huge round of applause from the people in Doncaster. So I'm going to take a quick break, and when I come back, I'm going to get into that. But I also, as well, when I come back, want to get into the things like the childcare and all the rest of it. Teresa's emailed me saying it's good that more funding will be available. But what about the families that now, in the here and now, are struggling? All of this is not happening, in a large part anyway, till after the next election. You make a good point there, Teresa. You can ponder this while we're on a break if you all like. What do you reckon to the timing of some of these announcements? Is it just basically politicians doing politics? Is there a little bit more to it than that? Do you find that frustrating that you read these great headlines and you think, yeah, that's going to help me, and then you realise that actually it's not going to happen until a year or so down the line? Your thoughts on the timing, and I'll see you in 2.
We We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216,
Freeview Channel 236,
and YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio,
with the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewbs, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dewbs and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Dewbs and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewbs, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nah, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Doncaster with me, Michelle Dewbs. We are, of course, keeping the theme with a big fat B. That is the budget right through till 7 o'clock tonight. I want your thoughts on this. I've just been having the comment there from one of my viewers, Teresa, about childcare and pointing out, and she's very smart, is our Teresa, saying, well, this is all great, but it's not going to happen until perhaps after the next election. Ben Habib, let's talk timing for a second. What do you think to this? Because some interesting announcements, but they're not going to happen in the here and now, which is when people need the support.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, with the childcare thing, he's created a burden for the Chancellor that comes in post the election. And I think the Conservative Party accept that they're going to lose the next election, so it's going to be Labour probably that's in office. And it'll be a millstone round the next Chancellor's neck to fund that £6.5 billion. That is a lot of money, £6.5 billion. That was the biggest spending giveaway made today, but made for the future Chancellor, not for this government. And I would have much preferred to have seen, if he was going to, if he could afford to spend £6.5 billion, I would have much preferred to have seen the basic rate of tax cut by 1.5%, which I think are roughly the same amount of, equates roughly to the same amount of money. But of course, he's not going to do that now. He's going to do that just before the election.
Yeah.
So they go into the election with a tax cut behind them.
It's politicking, Joe.
Well, absolutely. And I mean, he's played politics quite well. I mean, I'm sure there will be detractors within his own backbenches saying he hasn't gone far enough or he's gone too far or this, that or the other because, they're never happy, are they? But he has put pressure, as Ben said, on an incoming, let's assume, Labour government, but if not, our next Chancellor, to stick to some of these promises, which are way in the distant future. But if you are right now, and we were talking about this last week, Michelle, you know, if you are right now spending thousands of pounds each year in order to be able to go to work for putting your children in nursery, this isn't going to make any difference to you now, and you might end up paying more tax. And I think, you know, there are other things like this wraparound care for schools. Well, we know schools are struggling because they're struggling to pay the wages of their teaching assistants, to pay energy bills, to keep up with the general cost of living. And there's this political disconnect with figures, and it's always been the answer of this government when anybody complains about anything. They say, oh, we're spending X billion pounds on this. They never say that's, you know, so many more police officers or so many more nurses. It's all about money, but when you break it down, where does it go?
Well, do you know, I think I'm a little bit awful. I'll probably get called racist or something, because when you say, oh, it's always about money and no one ever says X amount of policemen, I've got into the habit now of comparing all of these figures to how much we spend per day putting people crossing the channel, etc., up in 4-star hotels. I do. I can't help it. I do. Now, I know everyone in this room is under the age of 21. I can see that. But one of the key focuses on Rishi Sunak's agenda is all about getting people back into the workplace, isn't it? Lots of people, particularly the over 50s, have left the world of work. Good on you if you're one of them. But all these incentives have been discussed to try and get you back in. So we touched earlier on about your pensions, getting rid of the lifetime allowance, allowing you to save more, etc. But one of the things that caught my eye, might have caught yours, is this kind of notion of returnships, I think they call, like an apprenticeship for the over 50s. I've got to say, some of you, I'm going to be nice, I know mostly you're about 21, but some of you might be over 50. Is there anyone here who perhaps left work or is considering a career change that sees the notion of returnships, like an apprenticeship, and thinks, yes, that is for me. I'm going to go and do an apprenticeship and get back into a new trade? The silence is deafening. If you are listening, not watching, and you can't see what's going on, not a single solitary person has got their hand up, and I don't actually think it's because they're shy. I think it's because the notion of being over 50, going into an apprenticeship, is not what people want. You know, there's a lot of criticism out there as well, saying that this isn't a pro-business budget. When Ben Habib was mentioning corporation tax earlier on, lots of you clapped. Can someone put their hands up? Do not be shy and tell me, what is it about corporation tax? Do you disagree with what happened today? So going from 19 to 25%, just getting a microphone over to you, sir. Tell me your name. Tell me your thoughts on the corp tax, please.
Hi, my name's Owen. Basically, they're taking away 6% of my profits. More or less. It's less money I invest. It's less money I can give to my employees. I can't do it. When you take away money from me, it's not good.
Right, so I'm going to play devil's advocate.
For everybody around me, it's not good.
I'm going to play devil's advocate because there'll be people at home watching going, well, the problem in this country is the business owners. They're all greedy. They make an absolute fortune. So what is 6% to them? Tax them an extra 10%. What would you say to someone like that?
Unfortunately, I didn't come in one of my 3 Ferraris.
Oh, right. Hey, are you single? Are you single? He's got 3 Ferraris. Go on.
The reality is that most small businesses, which is what we are constantly told the UK is made up of, is shop owners, small businesses. Don't make all this money. It's not a question that my turnover may be over £1 million, whatever it is. It doesn't all go in my pocket, unfortunately.
And you make a very good point. Thank you for that.
Can I just ask you a question?
Major.
Just because the British Chambers of Commerce said...
She wants my job. Go on.
No, but I'm just interested to know what Owen thinks. That British Chambers of Commerce said that they were really disappointed there wasn't anything about a reform of business rates. And I wondered if that's something that you had a feeling about.
I'm very lucky. We don't pay. We're a small business, so we don't pay any business rates as such. But yes, if you talk about a high street that we haven't got anymore, on all of these things, unless we do something radical, we will not regenerate the UK. Everybody spends year after day, day after day, running down our country. We have a brilliant country. We have a brilliant set of business people that are innovative and everything else. But if we continue like this, won't be here.
Ellis has said, One of my viewers, Ellis, has been in contact saying, Michelle, please, will you tell the public the full story when it comes to corporation tax? Because not all companies will be paying all of this because they will be allowed to offset some of their investment off their profits. They're talking about the super deduction, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's 100%, but it's not as good as it once previously was, Ben.
Well, I mean, it's not just corporation tax as well. I was just hearing what Owen was saying, and I completely endorse everything you were saying. But they've also reduced the threshold at which entrepreneurs will pay capital gains tax. They've increased the tax rate on dividends. So if you're a patrician owner of your business and you provide long-term employment, actually at the end of the day, you've paid more corporation tax, you've got less money to pay dividends, and that dividend income is going to be taxed even more greatly. So there's less and less incentive to take the risks that people like Owen take when they set up their business, they employ people. It's completely back to front. And there's one other example I just want to give about what this Chancellor's been on. Yeah, very short. Is last November, he removed $250 million worth of tax credits on research spend by companies into fintech and AI, into artificial intelligence. He removed that tax credit on investments, £250 million, and he replaced it with £360 million of government grants for the same thing. And it's an ideological problem that these people have. They don't want to cut taxes and allow us to make our decisions with what we do with our money and how we invest it in our businesses. What they want to do is direct money the way they see best by their own judgments. And that is not how you get the private sector moving. The government will make bad decisions. They've got to cut taxes and let businesses get on with how they spend that money.
Amen to that. Been in touch, one of my viewers, she says, please don't laugh at Michelle, but I'm 78 and I would love to go back to work to boost my pension, but there's so much ageism out there. It's unfair, she says. I've got all my faculties and I could run rings around some of these youngsters. So Gloria, I don't doubt you actually, Gloria, so a returnship is perhaps for Gloria. You go get them, girl. You run rings around those youngsters. I don't doubt you for a second. I'm not going anywhere, but I will see you in 2. Get your thoughts coming in. What about the budget? Give me your thoughts. I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference. And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. I campaigned in the largest democratic vote in our island story. I know this country has so much to be proud of. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better. The wisdom of the nation is in its people. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. That's why I'm joining the People's Channel. Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Dewbs & Co with me, Michelle Dewberry, here in Doncaster, alongside me, Joe Phillips, the political commentator, and the former Brexit Party MEP and businessman, Ben Habib. Welcome back, everybody. Paul in Hartlepool says, Michelle, the freezing of the fuel duty for a year is an absolute jerk. You do expand your reasons why, and I hear you, but I wonder, what do you reckon to the freezing of the fuel duty, Doncaster Folk? Good or not? Irrelevant? There's a chap there. Not only has he got his hands up, he's clicking his fingers. I like that assertiveness. Let's go to him. Go on, sir. You got my attention.
Well, I would have thought, my name's Ken, by the way,
Hello,
but I
Ken.
would have thought he would have took that 5% VAT off what they said they were going to do in 2016. Of the fuel duty.
Quite right.
So you don't think it goes far enough. I hear you, and I suspect that most people would agree with you as well. One of the things that people are keen to talk about, Joe, is pensions. Your thoughts on some of the announcements today, because there were a few different ones. We touched on them earlier on, and they have been criticised as being a giveaway to the rich. Your thoughts?
Well, they are, aren't they? And you know, I know the thinking behind it is that one of the reasons there's been an exodus of doctors and consultants from the NHS is because the change in the rules that meant that their lifetime pension allowance was penalised. So this is a bid to try and get them to stay on. But, you know, it's not much good to you if you're struggling and you're struggling to pay into a pension and you're struggling with the cost of childcare, or if you're one of the returnees that doesn't want to do whatever it's called, a retraining.
A returnship.
Returnship, because you're probably juggling your grandchildren, your elderly parents, and a whole load of other things. So I think, you know, this is a budget that's got some tick boxes for some people, but it hasn't got an overall vision. And the one thing we haven't heard very much of, although somebody mentioned it, is levelling up, which used to be the great mantra of this government.
Yeah, and of course we're in Doncaster, and the airport here will be no longer, or is no longer. That's got your attention earlier on, didn't it, sir? Can I get a microphone to you? Don't get camera shy, you're all right. Let's get a microphone. Just tell me briefly your airport levelling up. You don't think they're serious about levelling up, no?
No, I don't believe so, because obviously the airport's shut, we've got city status, the airport's shut, and the HS2 college is also shutting as well, which affects me because I have some apprentices in there.
Yeah, you see, and this is one of the things you hear about levelling up all the time, but if anyone actually took levelling up seriously, there would be no need to level up, because you wouldn't have such a massive gap between north and south, because if it was taken seriously, it just wouldn't exist. Rosie says, what about cigarettes? Why have they gone up from 6 o'clock today, but booze is not going up till August? The whole kind of cigarettes and booze thing, they are like such gimmicky kind of things, aren't they, when it comes to headlines and budgets? What did you make to them, Ben?
Well, we feel them, don't we? Because we all drink and some of us smoke. And yeah, so I mean, like any tax on any goods, I would have reduced tax generally on consumption. I think the point made about VAT coming down on fuel was a really good point. That was a promise that was made by the Conservative government if we left the European Union. It was the freedom that was given to us by leaving. I would also reduce the green taxes on fuel. You know, why are we, for example, again, it comes down to this idea that they rather spend than cut taxes. Why are they capping the cost of home heating again, extending that to £2,500 on average per home. Why don't they cut the VAT on fuel? Why don't they cut the green taxes? Let us decide how we spend our money.
Indeed. And speaking of spending your money, there was a radical suggestion or a question from this chat there. Can I get a microphone? Can you tell us your question? I thought it was quite a radical one. What's your name and what's your point?
Name's Robert Payne. And the point is, we have this absurd notion that's been developed for decades now, that taxation is in some way a good thing to have, as if the government can spend our money far better than we can.
Hold your microphone up so the people...
They're taking it from us on one hand and juggling it around and giving us little drips back again.
So why should we pay tax at all?
Who we feel just don't deserve it anyway.
Interesting. Joe, thank you. Joe, that point, this whole kind of notion of tax and do we trust you to spend it properly and why should we trust you actually? Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, this is the whole basis on which our democracy and our parliamentary process is founded. And it's entirely up to individual people when they come to vote to work out which party they think is going to look after the nation's finances. Now, it's quite clear that we all need to have some communal pot, a social fund, whether that's for the health service, whether it's for roads, whether it's for defence, whether it's for education, and all the things that we, by and large, all benefit from, whether it's individually or for in the future. But I think, this is the whole point, and this is to go back to your earlier point about budgets being politicking. It's painting, putting up posters that we did more for working mums, we did more for veterans, we've done more for levelling up.
It's all about spending. It's not about trusting people to get on and do their own thing.
No. Yeah. But it's entirely. But to answer the questions, it's up to us, I think, as voters, to challenge people and to challenge those who want our vote to say, OK, it's not about spending always. It's about what you're going to give back and how you're going to spend it. As we just said, these little bits of money, when it's divided out of these what sound like great pots, actually end up being over the course of 10 years and end up being fairly meaningless.
Victoria in Lincoln's been in touch saying, I love your live shows, Michelle, and I have to say, as a working person with no children, she certainly feels that the budget doesn't help her at all. I want a quick show of hands before I head to my next break. Are you more pro the Tories after this budget or less pro the Tories? Show of hands. So who is more into the Tories after today's budget? Hand show. Anyone less into the Tories? Anyone doesn't actually know what on earth I'm doing and just wants to go to the break because they want to go to the toilet? What about you guys? Oh, he's put both hands up. You sit there, you. We've got another 20 minutes to go, right?
But this isn't a Tory government. This isn't a Tory government.
Wow. Interesting point. Ben Habib leads me seamlessly into my next break. So here's what you guys are going to ponder at home and in the room today. Is it a Tory government? This budget that you've seen today, do you sit there? The room is saying no. You tell me at home, was it a Tory government or not? Thoughts? I'll see you in 2.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dewbs and Co.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Dewbs and Co. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry in Doncaster. Alongside me, Joe Phillips, Ben Habib. I was asking you guys during the break to ponder, are you more pro-Tories, less pro-Tories, or what? This chap has got an interesting point to make. What's your name and what's your point?
Yeah, my name is Sean O'Donnell, and I think the biggest problem we face at the moment is we're stuck in a two-party system, and we have the lowest standard of politician that we've had since the war, basically.
Wow. Time for proportional representation?
Sorry?
Is it time for proportional representation?
Well, it's time to boot both these parties out, whichever mechanism. I mean, yeah, I'm a great believer in democracy, but when you look at what it's produced in Parliament nowadays, you almost have to pinch yourself and question your own sensibilities on the subject. But I think you're absolutely right. The first past the post, two-party system simply isn't working. We've got a choice between a left-leaning Tory government and an even further left Labour government, Labour Party, and both of them are completely committed to large state, high taxation, large borrowing, and spending. That's what they're into.
Massive immigration.
And mass immigration.
They're shouting out.
Inability to stand up for national interests. Much more interested on the self-gratification they get on the international stage with their peer group than they get from the people who elect them. And that is a real issue.
Proportional representation?
Well, yes, absolutely. I mean, I would say I'm in favour of proportional representation. I worked for the Liberal Democrats for a long time. But I think people have now come round to realising that unless we have a fairer voting system, we're going to go through this seesaw forever and a day. And I completely agree with what the gentleman over there said about the standard of politics in this country has got so low, mainly because of Boris Johnson. But, you know, Rishi Sunak was part of that government as well.
Oh, there's a side. There's a lot of sides in Doncaster.
There's always going to be. But, you know, actually, when you look at the other issue, it's not just PR. It's about devolution. And if you see what can be done, you know, whether it's Andy Streeter or Andy Burnham, they've got more power and more voice, and they are much more accountable because they're in the face of the people.
Can I get a microphone to you? Can you just shout? We don't know. Can I get a microphone to this lady? We need to. Obviously, the cost of living crisis. She's got a scarf on. She was just putting her gloves on till I went to her. Anyway, why did you shout no when Joe said about devolution?
I hate devolution.
Why?
I think the low calibre of people we have got and the language I'm hearing in the parties is dreadful. When you hear someone being called scum and terrible things, this is not the calibre of people we want. And if we in West Yorkshire didn't want a mayor and we've got a mayor. Why are we paying for all these politicians that are very low calibre? I am fed up with it.
But do you mean the local politicians? Or no?
In Wales,
Oh,
I
no,
don't agree with
Put the microphone
any
to your
of it.
mouth, because otherwise the good people at home are missing what you're saying.
I don't
Angie,
agree with it. I
meant
think
much
the low
more
calibre
about-
and what they're doing is not right for
Let me ask you a very quick question then. So if you're saying there's loads of low calibre people in politics, are you in favour of paying more money then to the MPs to get a high calibre?
I wish we could, but I don't think that would happen. We're getting box stickers.
Box stickers, there you go. This lady's not having any of it. I want to just bring some people from home in, if I may. Kenneth says the budget was a damp squib, in my opinion, but it is to be expected. A little confession for you. All of my life, I thought that saying was damp squid, and I only actually learned it was damp squib probably about a year or so ago.
It is now
anyway.
a damp squid as well.
Well, I always thought damp squid worked quite well. Anyway, Ben Habib for PM, I say concept. You can't see him, but he's blushing a bit. He's a modest man. Richard says this was a budget for Silicon Valley. There was nothing for the working man or working woman. Bob says the oncoming bike crisis means that cutting taxes would create even greater problems. That's Ben worried about a ripple effect there because of Silicon Valley Bank, etc. The free childcare is a vote winner and shows that the Tories are family, aspiration-orientated people, says David. David likes it. David, the people of Donny are laughing at you a little bit. I think they disagree with that sentiment. I don't think they feel as positive about the Tories, perhaps, as you, Ben. And says the over 50s who have retired for one reason and one reason only, and that is because they don't want to work anymore. It is simple. John says, Michelle, you didn't listen to what Gloria said earlier on. She was saying that she can't get back into work because there's ageism in the workplace. I did listen. Do you agree with that? Is there ageism in the workplace?
Fine to be.
Yeah? Yes. Hang on, he says no. Can I put a microphone to you? Why do you not? Can I get a microphone to this chap here? This one there. Why do you think there's not, as brief as we can, because look at the time, it flies. Why do you think there's not ageism?
I work in the insurance industry, which experience is very important, and there's a lot of experience left the industry recently. We're trying to coax people back.
Yeah, and it's there you go. You see, it divides opinion because there is different people. Some people saying the ageism is because if you're young without experience, you can't get onto the ladder. The flip side of it is if you're older, people think that you're past it. It's other people's words, not mine. Tony says the problem with levelling up, Michelle, what you're talking about, is that all of the levelling up comes from Westminster. They don't really ask the regions what it is that they want. And Kay, one of my viewers, she says the most disappointing thing for me in the budget today was that there was absolutely no mention at all of cutting foreign aid. Well, time flies. You've got the 10-second summary. 10-second summary.
Overall, this is a budget of continued taxing the nation heavily, turn a blind eye to the plight of the private sector, and spend more money where it politically suits the government.
Slogans, no detail.
Slogan, no detail. Richard says Starmer's response said the sticking plaster was used 7 times. Malcolm says, hang on, Michelle, has this budget been approved by Gary Lineker yet? You make a good point. On that note, I will say farewell. Thank you, Doncaster. Thank you, panel. Nigel Farage is up next. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office with me, Annie Shuttleworth. Thursday is going to be a much milder day than today, as we've got milder Atlantic air pushing up, being dragged up behind this warm front, which has been tracking across the country through the day, bringing many outbreaks of rain. So it's been a pretty wet day across the UK, and through this evening we'll continue to see some quite heavy rain and snow as that rain falls into the colder air across Scotland. So there are still warnings in force through this evening and into the early hours of Thursday. Further south, we'll see a drier night, but we'll see a brisk southerly breeze, and that will pick temperatures up through the night. So temperatures will increase by the time we get to the early hours of Thursday. So tomorrow will be a milder start than this morning. However, across parts of Wales, northwest England and southern Scotland, there's still a rain warning in force, so there could be some traffic on the roads. Then as we head through the afternoon, things will tend to become a little bit drier. And temperatures, again, are still climbing up above average, so feeling milder than it will have done today. However, across parts of Northern Ireland, though the skies will brighten, there's a risk of thundery showers through the afternoon and into Thursday evening. Generally, though, overnight it'll be a drier and clearer night, but still with that milder air, that stiff southerly breeze, we'll continue to see temperatures above average overnight, so frost-free for much of the UK, some areas staying in double digits well into the start of Friday. So Friday will be a bit of a mixed picture depending on whereabouts you are. But more southern areas could see the threat of thundery downpours. Dry to start through many central and eastern areas, but that risk of thundery showers does spread eastwards as we head through the afternoon. An unsettled day on Saturday, but still rather mild, and perhaps turning a bit cooler into the start of next week.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dewbs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
It's Wednesday night, and this is Farage Spring Budget Special, live from Doncaster. Please welcome your host, Nigel Farage.
Yes, good evening. It's Farage at large in Doncaster on this spring budget day. We've got a local MP on the show, economists. I'll be asking the audience what the budget meant to them, and we'll finish off with the former player manager of Doncaster Rovers. All of that in just a moment, but first,
let's get the news with Polly Middlehurst.
Nigel, thank you, and good evening to you. Well, it's been budget day today, and Jeremy Hunt has vowed to encourage millions of people to rejoin the workforce and boost Britain's financial growth in his first budget as Chancellor. Mr Hunt said the Office for Budget Responsibility now forecasts the UK will no longer enter a recession this year. Instead, inflation is predicted to fall from 10.7% at the end of last year to 2.9% by the end of 2023. Let's take you through the key points. Well, the measures include a reduction in duty paid on draft beer and cider bought in pubs, a further 12-month freeze on fuel duty, also abolishing the lifetime allowance on tax-free pension savings, which was at £1 million. And also coming up in the list that the Chancellor put forward today, he suggested extending the current energy price guarantee, and that, he says, will be for a further 3 months, bringing prepayment meter charges in line with those who pay by direct debit. Well, also on the Chancellor's list today, he announced an increase to the defence budget, saying that would be worth